So I've been doing some experiments to try to figure out some low-cost acrylic pouring mediums that cost a lot less than the professional pouring mediums such as Liquitex or Golden. And a lot of people are doing this these days with craft paints, and might as well start out your experiments with some low-cost methods. And so I heard from a friend that she was using glue all with her classes and that was getting really good results. And I had mentioned that I had bought some Floetrol, which is something you can buy at Home Depot or on Amazon. And this is used as a paint conditioner for painting walls. And so I decided to try an experiment comparing those two, the glue all and the Floetrol. And these were the results of my experiment. Well, actually, first of all, the ones I did were the glue all ended up being very runny because I ended up putting half water and half of the glue all because it wasn't flowing very easily. In order for it to kind of match the consistency of the Floetrol, it needed about half water. So it turns out that was too thin because it was creating little holes in the paint, and it also just doesn't have a good consistency to it, and all of the paint colors tended to kind of run together. So then I tried no water added, and I think this was the best example of the ones I did with the glue all. So you can kind of see some cells in there. It still kind of runs together a little bit, but this was the best one. However, as I said, it had a hard time flowing. I ended up having to use my sticks to push the paint because even as I was tilting it, it wasn't flowing very easily. And then I did a third experiment with the glue all, and I used less water, but it really just became sort of a dirty mess. So not that great. Whereas my Floetrol example came out pretty nice. I felt that it's a little bit easier to control the flow of it, and that the cells become a little bit more differentiated. So this time I've decided I'm going to try out a mix using the Elmer's glue with the Floetrol. And so I followed the mix that I found on another blogger's YouTube page. Her page is called Drier Days, and her name is Catherine. And so she was using like an 8-ounce bottle, which I converted to use this 12-ounce bottle that I just found these at the Walmart in the kitchen section. And so I converted the recipe so that it's 8 ounces of the Elmer's glue all, 2 ounces of the Floetrol, 1 ounce of Liquitex. Well, she said Flow Medium. I actually use my Pour Medium. Just 1 ounce of that and 1 ounce of spring water. So this should help make the consistency of the Elmer's glue all flow a little bit better, and it doesn't use quite as much of the Floetrol and a lot less of the Liquitex. So she says that just helps things slide on a lot better. So what I'm going to do is I have already taken one of each of all of these paints, put a little dollop in here, and instead of pre-mixing it, I thought I'd show you how much paint is actually in the cup this time. And basically I'll take this mix of the different flowing mediums. I'm putting about half and half of paint to the mix. You know, it's not scientific, I'm just doing it by eye. And so what I've got is a red, sort of a burgundy color. This one is actually a metallic paint by Deco Art. And then I'm putting a fair amount of white, and then there's a black. And I'm going to use the white and black sort of as isolation colors between the different colors. And then you want to mix each of these fairly thoroughly. and make sure it's about the right consistency for flowing. I think that this one might need a little bit more. It was a little bit thicker paint than the others were. So you gotta, you gotta do it by feel. Yeah, and that seems to be dripping a little bit better now. Let's see what this one's like. Let's try a little bit more. I'm also a little bit concerned because I'm using a larger canvas this time that I am actually putting enough paint in here to cover the whole canvas. If it doesn't, this is just an experiment anyway. I just want to see how things flow. And this one's definitely a little bit thicker than the other ones. If you want, you can also, if needed, you can add a little bit of spring water. I suggest spring water instead of tap water just because you don't know what chemicals are going to do to it. So, oops, drip, drip. Gotta have that copper. And yeah, that one seems to be thin enough already. Add a little bit of spring water to this one too. Okay, so there's so many different ways to do these pours, but partially because I'm concerned I might not have enough paint, I'm going to actually start with some of this flow medium in the bottom of the cup, and then I'll start pouring a little bit of each color in here. And I'm gonna put a little bit of white between some of the colors. Try some more flow medium again. Some of the kind of gold coppery color. Let's try black because I think black would look really good next to a metallic color. A little bit more flow medium. And just for kicks, let's put a little bit of silicone in here. And I'm just using this 3-in-1 silicone. I'm not sure if it's a good type to use for paint pours because I've been seeing other people using like treadmill silicone. I don't know if there's anything wrong with that silicone, but we're just going to give it a try. Let's do another red. And let's do white. And burgundy. Copper. Try that black again. A little bit of the medium. And red again. I'm just going to keep doing this till I fill up this cup. Or run out of paint, whichever comes first. Try that black again. And copper. Okay, about to run out of these paints, so I hope we get a fun mix this time. I'm not really that excited about the last one I did. I think you just have to do these a lot of times before you kind of get a feel for what really works. And let's finish it up with a little bit more of the painting medium. Okay, a squirt of silicone. Get rid of these cups. And I do not pretend to be an expert on this technique. I am just like everyone else, figuring things out as I go along. But I do like the idea of these flip cups because I love not being completely in control. I tend to be kind of a tedious painter sometimes. And doing acrylic pours kind of gets around that tendency. It doesn't let me have control, so... All right, so let's see what happens here. Ooh, it's kind of interesting, actually. Kind of reminds me of butterfly wings. All right, I'm gonna see what happens as I spread this around. I'm kind of glad that I added some black to this one. I tend to not use black much in my paintings because I was always taught when you add black to any painting, it deadens the colors. But I think that it's a different case when it comes to poured paints. Oh yeah, this is much more exciting than the previous example that I did. I don't want to over tilt, so I'm just going to use some of my paints. Tease it out. We can also go around the edges. I always like to have the edges colored up. So I'm just going to keep fussing with it a little bit, and this time I think I might actually come back and show you what it looks like as it dries. But I do have to keep it stationary so it doesn't flow all over the place. And by the way, what I'm using to catch the paint is just this tin pan is something I got at the dollar store. It's like a roasting pan. And then these racks I think I also got at the dollar store. I do like to economize where I can because there's plenty of cases where you're spending a lot of money on art supplies. One of the things that I like to actually spend my money on is good brushes. And for my more professional paintings that I sell, I definitely want to use good quality paints. So I see these experiments as a method for me to, like I said, get around my tendency to be overly, I tend to overwork things sometimes. And I do also suffer a little bit from creative anxiety, especially when I haven't painted for a while. So this is kind of a fun way to get back in the flow. And I enjoy taking these abstract experiments and seeing what I can see in them, and then I might create a painting out of this later. Okay, so I'm seeing a little bit of bumpy areas here and there. So what I'm going to do is I've got some toothpicks. If I can get it out of the container. Now I might have to open it. And okay, so it's kind of hard to see just how the surface of this looks. So bringing the camera down, you can take a look. Some really nice cells in there, and I didn't even have to use a torch, which I find most artists who use this technique do. Ooh, I am very excited about this. Yeah, kind of spacey. Okay, so but what I'm seeing is there's some clumps right here, and so what I would do with that is just kind of pick it up a little bit, spread it back out, and other than that, there's some little areas here that need to be filled in. So I'm just showing you how fussy I tend to be sometimes, but it will, some areas will fill themselves back in, but if you want to make sure that they get filled in, you can do that like this, or you can just leave it if you prefer. There we go. Anyway, I'm pretty happy with this experiment, and I think that I really do like this this idea of combining the Elmer's glue with the Floetrol and Liquitex Medium, because I think it really does help it flow a lot better. Hope you enjoyed this video and got something out of it. Thanks for watching.